stories from around the corner
and around the country.
You're listening to All the Best.
Proudly supported by the Art Gallery of New South Wales.
You're listening to All the Best from FBI Radio 94.5. I'm Kwame Slusher.
Climbing down the entrance stairs teleports us to an underground space that's the opposite of the world above it. The silence reverberates of the sterile white walls. It's only us and our footsteps echoes that breaks the stillness.
That was Lindsey Vassallo, who'll be taking us underground to investigate a Sydney mystery. But before we get into this week's story, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that I'm recording from stolen and Gadigal land, and pay my respect to Gadigal elders past and present, and also recognize that the area where FBI Radio is situated, Redfern, has long been a place of storytelling, strength, resistance, and resilience for First Nations communities. Almost 250,000 people pass through Central Station on a daily basis, going up and down the escalators, dodging each other as they race from platform to platform, probably not giving a single thought to the fact that 124 years ago, Central used to be the Devonshire Cemetery, which was crowded in quite a different way. In 1901, 30,000 bodies were relocated to build Central Station. And this is what I love about Sydney, all these tiny details that can give a place new meaning. In this week's episode, Lindsey guides us to one of those tucked away places hidden under Hyde Park in the Sydney CBD.
Sydney is a landmark city, home to countless eye-catching attractions that see continuous intrigue with the 6 million international tourists that visit each year. When wandering this vast metropolis, one is bound to encounter the gems that give Sydney life. From the Sydney Harbour Bridge, the Opera House, Luna Park, Queen Victoria Building, Centre Point Tower, Darling Harbour, Bondi Beach, King's Cross, Oxford Street, Paddy's Markets, the Sydney Observatory, Paddy's Markets, the Sydney Observatory. The list feels endless. It almost feels like every space that makes up the largest city in the country has already been shown to the world. However, discoveries can still be made, even in an urban jungle. So what if I told you there's another landmark in Sydney, worth seeing, completely hiding in plain sight? It resides underground in complete desolation, as the surface above is flooded with people, a place home to vibrant creativity, but sterile in atmosphere. One that aimed to move people into the future, but stand still in a trapped past. A true hidden oddity, so obscure that many Sydney-siders are oblivious to its strange existence.
Yeah, what is that? Just like some eerie liminal space.
Reminds you, I don't know, gives me like Matrix vibes.
Oh my goodness, I didn't know that. Oh, it's just like a different world.
I don't really know what to make of it.
Oh, it looks long. That is a long boy.
So, where is this local oddity? Well, how about I take you there? As the crosswalk signal blares out, the traffic on wheels waits for the traffic on foot to cross. We're on the corner of Bathurst and Elizabeth Street, in the heart of the CBD. All around us, there is a city on the move. Bustling commuters swarm like ants between illuminated storefronts and parking zones. Cutting through the asphalt strip takes us away from the realm of skyscrapers and lightbox billboards to a botanical sanctuary. We enter Hyde Park, a place just as lively as the concrete jungle that surrounds it. Along our walk on the main strip, we're enthralled with sights of the memorial fountain, ferns, palms, bin chickens, and the maintenance workers that keeps this park breathing. Before we know it, we've made it to the end of Hyde Park, but to the right of this exit lies a narrow offshoot surrounded by shrubs and a distinct lack of foot traffic. Walking this winding path leads us to an underground entrance. A sign above proclaims its name, Express Walkway. Climbing down the entrance stairs teleports us to an underground space that's the opposite of the world above it. The silence reverberates of the sterile white walls. it's only us and our footsteps' echoes that breaks the stillness. As we venture through an ominous passageway, we see what lives within it. Draped by the fluorescent lights above lies an extraordinary sight. Spanning 680 feet is a two-way Travellator. Its slight dip in elevation obstructs the view of its end, making it seem infinite. Choosing to walk its black rubber surface will take you through its 200-meter vortex, covered in the blotches of colourful murals from both ends. Childlike in their nature, they whimsically depict the evolution of Sydney from its colonial establishment to the present day. These paintings show Indigenous art, a Vancouver-inspired skyline of Darling Harbour. Giant children frolic on grassy knolls. A baby blue harbour bridge is surrounded by a golden sky with salmon pink clouds, and a cheeky sunbather stretches their near-naked self across a large section of the mural. 5 minutes pass as you digest the dreamlike quality that this place emits. Before you know it, you're now exiting this expansive walkway back into reality, where the concrete aura of the main car park awaits you. After exploring this surreal place, one can't help but wonder how this elaborate piece of engineering now stands as a mere speck in Sydney's cultural landscape. To answer this, we must move back in time.
I'm Vanessa Berry. I am a writer, artist and zine maker, and one of the things I'm fascinated about is the unusual and unexpected stories of Sydney. When I started the Mirror Sydney project in 2012, my focus was on particular places in Sydney that fascinated me because they were perhaps a bit unusual, or there was something about their atmosphere that intrigued me, and had a bit of a list of the places that fit that criteria, and the Domain Express Footway was certainly one of those. So I've written a few pieces about the Footway, and it's a favourite place of mine.
In the present day, Travelators seem like a mundane staple in airport terminals, but during their infancy, they were considered a huge step forward in transport evolution. When attendees arrived by steamboat at the 1893 Chicago World's Fair, they were introduced to an exhibit thought to only be possible in science fiction novels. For the simple entry fee of 5 cents, visitors could either stand, walk, or sit on floorboards moved by the powers of electric pulley motors. This ambitious attraction would officially go by the name of the Great Raft Moving Sidewalk by its inventors Joseph Lyman Silsby and Max E. Schmidt. But what they didn't anticipate was that their invention would mark the first Travelator ever built. Silsby and Schmidt would later outdo themselves with one long electric power walkway known simply as Rue de l'Avenir, which is French for Street of the Future. The attraction's popularity drew in millions of passengers during its 7 months of operation, and was a 3.5 kilometer long spectacle captured by men with their moving picture cameras.
There is a great video from 1900, one of the Paris World's Fairs or expositions, of people on this moving walkway. That's pretty interesting to watch, just to see people using it, and they're so delighted by it, they're having a great time.
As the early 20th century drew on, many speculated bold predictions regarding the impact moving sidewalks would have. Some forecast it to be a standard sight in cities by the turn of the new millennium, and may even end the need to walk entirely. At the start of the 1950s, a movement began that desired individualism and efficiency in how people travelled. The land of trams and tightly packed Victorian buildings was seen as a dated eyesore in the way of open roads dominated by automobiles.
In the 1950s, the tram network, which ran all over Sydney, was basically decommissioned because it was thought, well, everyone's going to use their car from now on, right? That's going to be what people want to do. So they were building parking lots, ripping up the tram tracks, and so the Footway came about as part of that. So the Domain car park was built, and it was thought, well, what's going to encourage people to use it and it connect this car park, which is really on the fringes or the edges of the city, with the city itself. And so enter footway. And amazingly, it's kind of been there ever since. The city was really changing around this time, and there was this belief that the city of the future was being built now.
It is here that the need for travellators had to evolve with the times. The City of Sydney Council responded with approval to build a moving footway that could transport commuters out of the car station via Hyde Park. With a budget of over £85,000 and a Newcastle engineering firm signing on, City Council held ambitions for the project to be more than an add-on to the car park, but a showpiece. As 1959 dawned upon Sydney, excavations began on the underground dwelling that would become home to the moving footway. This symbol of New Age machinery was boasted by the press to have state-of-the-art safety for its riders, assuring a walkway that's, quote, foolproof and as safe as integrity can make it.
There was a lot of coverage of the footway because it was this new, innovative thing that was of the future, so it was actually a big news story.
A cold Friday on the 9th of June 1961 would finally see festivity in the air as the moving footway saw its grand opening. Camera flashes littered the car park like fireworks as over 200 spectators witnessed Lord Mayor Harry Jensen give his speech and cutting ribbon honour for what Guinness World Records would officially recognise as the longest moving footway in the world.
Begin operations. Alderman Jensen gets some moral support from his 13-month-old son Mark. The footway will carry 6,000 people an hour from the parking station, and the honour of being first was reserved for Sydney's Lord Mayor and Master Mark Jensen. First passengers on the world's longest moving footway.
As the guests of honour enjoyed the remaining festivities with lobster marnay and salad-filled pineapple shells, riders would soon discover this rubber belt giant's crave for consumption. Amongst the hundreds of captivated riders is one woman. As she enjoys the seamless ride, her foot strays too close to the barricading gaps of the walkway, until she feels the jolted pull of her foot inching closer to the Travelator's ears. As the survival instincts kick in, she pulls her foot out of danger. Her toes are spared, but her rubber galosh is not as lucky. This hair-raising incident will mark the moving footway's first accident only mere hours after its opening. With the months wearing on, the dark side of the Travellator will continue to manifest. Men's trousers, women's shoes, a child's finger, and even a Pekingese pup's hind leg weren't safe from the 1.19mm wide jaw that lurked on this contraption. As its first anniversary came, the Travelator accounted for 9 accidents in just a year. Its frequency to inflict physical injury coined it the nickname, the Domain Monster. This beacon of future transportation was soon the subject of talks of a different tone. City Council would see scrutiny for its seemingly lack of action to these ordeals. Many contemporary articles reported the wave of compensation requests from victims who lost their pants or £5 notes.
Reading them now, I think, is it just that people don't realise that they have to step off it? And I think it is things like that. They just weren't used to it, perhaps, and they trip up or stumble using it.
Even in its infancy, the Travelator was prone to days or even weeks of closure for safety inspections. The addition of warning signs that screamed, "Step off footway, do not slide," were plastered across the tunnel. Steps are raised and emergency switches more visible. The robust safety upgrades aimed to win back the public's trust, but these precautions wouldn't stop the rising injuries. After a mere 3 years of frequent accidents, a new chapter for the footway began. What was once seen as a milestone in future engineering morphed into a public menace that required personal property and limbs for sacrifice. As for the council, the footway's most vocal defender, they too wore out the novelty of its existence, reshaping their relationship with the footway as nothing more than a financial chore to upkeep, and a first step to an expensive project that never was. Once the 70s rolled around, the footway began to cease rolling altogether. The City Council would set aside millions of dollars to replace the worn-down belts and chains that leave the footway out of action for extended periods of time. The maintenance cycle would repeat as decades pass, hindering the convenience of the thousands per day who still find practicality in the footway for their daily commutes. Despite its inefficiency, breakdowns, and danger, there's still this novel fascination that pulls many like myself towards it. I guess it's the potential of its unique aura. Many may see this drawn-out footway as nothing more than a product of a bygone era, but others continue to seek purpose for the footway's future. As the decades passed, the city government kept the footway partially running, but others sought to keep its heart pumping. Through the value of romance, one group of university students collaborated to turn this dreary space into a tunnel of love. On a sunny October Saturday in 2010, the footway became the Travellator, a social hub for couples to try speed dating on the footway itself, giving its participants a novel twist to a very beloved form of matchmaking. The footway's potential was not limited to romantic gestures. For others, there was a hidden canvas in the tunnel walls that could be home to a creative experience. Who are you and what's your occupation?
My name's Tim Guider and I'm an artist. I've been an artist all my life.
And what is your association with the Domain Express Footway?
Almost 30 years ago, I was commissioned to create a mural inside the tunnel that the Travelator is in, and the two ends, either end as well. Originally, South Sydney Council owned the building. They reached out to me and asked, could I create a mural? They didn't reach out to any other artists because it was so difficult. It's the longest mural in linear length in the city, and logistically it was extremely difficult to create because I needed to trolley gallons and gallons and gallons of paint down the Travelators with them off. I had an airless spray unit, and back in those days, and I used that and very long extension leads to go all the way into the tunnel with the spray unit, and I used that to initially paint the undercoat and the different coloured backgrounds which merged from yellow to green to blue and so on. I began with a drawing.
Within this drawing was its sculptural centrepiece, an Indigenous elder clenching to the bars of the Sydney Harbour Bridge that morphs into the Opera House, an image clearly paralleling imprisonment. This hybrid barge is being towed by a First Fleet ship that sails towards a cliff occupied by Indigenous people.
Ended the design there and explained to the council that it'll develop as it goes along. I also insisted on 100% artistic license. So during the painting of it, there was a small conflict that happened where some members of the council banded together and contacted me and said they want to meet me at the mural, and they wanted things changed. And I explained to them, I've got 100% artistic license. No, I'm not going to change it. So it went into mediation, and one of the people higher up in the council sat at that mediation and decided that the artist was in the right. So I then, in reply to those people that gave me such a hard time, I painted the very large image of the woman lying on the beach.
So that was a reflection, but that was like a take back.
That was kind of my answer to them, that I can put anything I like into this mural, and like, you can't stop me.
Once accepting this artistic venture, Tim wanted to use his megalithic piece to platform a prevalent issue, a topic seen throughout his other work and collaboration with Indigenous artists: the high incarceration of Indigenous people, an unjust truth that 90s Australia turned a blind eye to and resisted inculpability.
Had a guy who was either a judge or a barrister demand to know what my name was. This is why I was still creating the mural in the early stages. Demand to know my name and who commissioned the mural, because he was going to complain strongly about the image. And and I said to the man, listen, I'm happy for you to complain to the council, you go ahead. And I said, but think about this. Why don't you go to your office and get on the phone and do something about the high rate of imprisonment of Aboriginals in this country, because it's, they represent 3% of the population, but they represent about 33% of the prison population. So, yeah, and there were some very, very positive things that happened.
What were those positive things?
Well, in contrast to that guy, not that long after, because I was still working on that image, right? I think I was painting the bars of the Harbour Bridge at that time, with the grey colour. And the Aboriginal was already there and in place. He was coloured, like painted, right? And the Opera House was, more or less finished. And I heard something behind me because I'm facing the mural, And I looked around and it was an Aboriginal woman standing there with tears rolling down her face. And so I said as gently as I could, "Are you okay?" And she said, "Yes, I am. And did you create this artwork?" And I'd already had the judge. I thought, oh no,
not again.
No, not this. But that wasn't the case. She then said really sincerely, thank you so much. And she said, "I think you're very brave for what you've done, because what you've expressed needs to be told." The mural was being cared for then, but then after that, the people at the Royal Botanic Gardens changed, and the new people didn't think they should pay me to remove graffiti from the mural. So I challenged them and filed an affidavit in federal court, and basically took them to federal court. I was very fearful of doing so because they're the government, And at that stage, there was a build-up of graffiti, because if you leave graffiti, it attracts other people to come and put more graffiti. So there was a lot of graffiti over the mural back then in 2020 or whatever it was. So after 6 months of removing graffiti, and it took me another 12 months after that to remove the rest, after 6 months, I lodged the court documents, and the government got a real shock. So I took them to court, and they settled. In my dealings since the settlement with the New South Wales government, I've pointed out to them that I created the mural to be viewed at speed from the moving Travelator, not from a stationary Travelator that they also don't care about. And I told them that I could take that to federal court because it's derogatory treatment. The artwork is no longer being viewed at the correct speed. And I spaced the images out deliberately for that. Otherwise, if I had to put the images closer together, you would have had to keep turning your head, backwards and forwards to see them, like at a tennis match or something. So I made it comfortable for the viewer travelling on the moving Travelator to be able to view the mural just nicely. The footway is absolutely iconic. It's a piece of history of Sydney. It means a lot to a lot of people. When I spent 18 months removing graffiti from the mural, I found that out. When I was removing graffiti from the mural some years back during, or just after the COVID period, I was along the Travellator a bit, about 50 metres. A girl that was about 8 years old was jumping up and down and screaming loudly. And I thought, wow, what's going on? And I stood up and looked, and then I saw her mother's with her, and then I could hear what she was saying. She wanted her photo taken in front of the mural. So I walked down and introduced myself and said I painted the mural, and I tried to make it look like one of those children's books that you open them up and the picture folds out into a three-dimensional picture. And I did that for that reason, to appeal to children that might relate to that through books that they've had like that are similar, And that was it. But what was profound about that for me was that I realised I'd created the mural 25 years earlier, like before that girl was born. And that, here I am now, I'm 71, and in the future when I'm gone, there'll be other people like her that will react really strongly to the images in the mural. It's a piece of history, you know. We keep old cars like T-model Fords and we restore them, and old locomotives and trams that they've restored. You can lovingly restore anything, a tram, a train, a car, or a Travelator.
Whilst the footway may seem like a ghost residing 6 feet under a lush green, its presence isn't without a legacy. The type of future this unique people mover was made for would never come to fruition, but it doesn't mean it lacks a future either. In its 60 years of existence, this one Travelator was a window into the future, a menace to the public, an artistic hub, and a place where love would spark. Through the power of public and historical interests, it's certain that the Domain Express walkway will evolve into its next form, alongside the thriving city it not only inhabits, but represents.
That piece was produced by Lindsey Vassallo, and the supervising producer was Persephone Waxman. Whether you're a storyteller or a story lover, listen to All the Best for unique stories from independent audio makers from so-called Sydney and around the country. Catch our live radio broadcast on Sundays at 9:30 a.m. on FBI Radio 94.5. Listen to our podcast Tuesdays at 4 p.m. on allthebestradio.com, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Follow us now so you never miss an episode. All the Best would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which we make these stories, and pay our respects to elders past and present. All the Best is made at FBI Radio on Gadigal land in association with SYN and 3RRR on Wurundjeri Woi Wurrung and Boon Wurrung lands, and 8CCC on Arrente and Wurrumungu lands. The All the Best editorial producer is Mel Bakewell, and Phoebe Adler-Ryan is our executive producer. Patrick McKenzie is our community coordinator, and thanks to all the volunteers who make All the Best possible. Shining Bird composed our theme music, and Annie Hamilton designed the artwork. We're heard across Australia on the Community Radio Network, and we're made possible by the Art Gallery of New South Wales and the Community Broadcasting Foundation. You can find our full archive of more than 600 episodes at allthebestradio.com. I'm Kwame Slusher. Thanks for listening.